Prepare, respond, survive. When seconds count, train with the best. Fire facilities, custom steel towers built for real-world fire training. Be ready, be resilient.
I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of exposure 4. Got fire through the roof of the fire building in the entire rear section. Now remember, given the payday, as you can account for, okay? 610B, that was the mandate, 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the second floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Bring up to the top floor. I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building. A lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a third alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows centered below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. Second alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got one line stretch, fire on the 4th floor. Second line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to our fire engineering podcast, The Command Post. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with my teacher partner and best friend, Chief John Salka. And we got another one to run by you today. And for those of you that, while you're working out, doing your car rides, John, I just want to mention while we're doing this, the plan we did years ago. We've been doing these shows, folks, for years. We were doing them before they were called podcasts. I started doing the Pride and Ownership. I was doing fire engineering talk radio back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then we ended up changing the format. And then they gave us the title, The Command Post. And we were live. And then we did the recorded. And it's been a long time coming. And as it is today, we've had some fun with it. But we changed, so there's a lot of people out there that do, and John, you and I have talked about this. They do like the 3-hour podcast. And I had the blessing, buddy. You know this story for our viewers and our listeners. I met Mike Rowe. We all like Mike Rowe, Deadliest Catch, and Someone's Got to Do It, and all the great shows he does. America Works. He's phenomenal. We both love that guy. And ended up visiting with him in the Admirals Club in Chicago. And, just talking, no bother and everything else. And we talked podcasts, and he said, Rick, nobody's doing, if you're Joe Rogan, you're somebody like that. Yeah, they're doing a 3-hour podcast, when they have the president or people on there, big athletes and stuff like that. He goes, but most of the people, they're looking for that 30, 45-minute show while they're driving to and from work. They're working out, they're mowing the lawn with their headset on, so on and so forth. So that's the format, folks, that we came up with a while back was, we're shooting for that 45-minute show. Sometimes, pretty much all the time, it's never enough time. Some of the topics we talk about, right, buddy, we could go for like 8 hours, but we do that. And then we get a lot of great feedback from you. People are like, this is perfect. I listened to you guys when I was working out. So that's the reason why we did that. And that being said, a little reminder about our Hump Day Hangout. Our Hump Day Hangout is the third Wednesday of every month with Fire Engineering at fireengineering.com at noon Central Time with Chief Scott Thompson, the legend, and another legend, Chief Curtis Burt. Kurt's with the ops chief, works for another great boss, Jay Taylor, down in Pearland, Texas. And Scott used to work with us. He was my partner for a long time, taught with us at both Curtis and Scott have taught with John at FDIC for decades. And Curtis is down in Pearland. Scott's the chief in the Colony, Texas, doing great things with a great fire department. The FDIC reminder, we keep saying this, folks, hot workshops are open right now. John and I are doing a hot workshop, not necessarily hands-on training like we used to, on day one, Monday. It's a 4-hour workshop on leadership. Please sign up now because every year we end up short of seats. There's only so many people can fit in the classroom, so please pre-register. And then starting Wednesday are all the breakout sessions, all the classrooms. And I believe Wednesday we're doing ours after opening ceremonies, a new program called A Firefighter's Fire Chief. Everybody's talked about that for years. They come up to us and go, so what does it mean to be a firefighter's fire chief? What does it take? So it's a breakout session, a program that John and I have been doing, and we're going to bring it to FDIC. So that one you can just walk in. But again, John, you've seen it where they come in and close the doors to do the fire codes, and people end up out in the hallway having to go to their classes because we can't get them all in the room. Right. So make sure you do that. If you get to FDIC, please, we talk to everybody, man. We're in the book booth. We're in the magazine booth. We're in the CSU booth. We're in the Dingus Fire booth. We love seeing you. That's our energy drink for the week, our fix. So real quick, John, before we get going, how are things in the Salka? You looks like you're looking for something. Terry used to say that. And some of the shows Terry
trying to figure out what that item was behind me, but
Terry, there were times where you were looking and Terry's texting me going, do we need to help Chief Salka locate something? But so what's going on in the Salka world, man? Anything new, or is you just rolling along, or what?
Well, moving along. We got 2 new grandbabies on the way. I think one in January, one in February, or something like that. Maybe February, March. I don't keep track of it. But
is that number 30 and 35? Well,
yeah,
I don't know what number.
It'll be number actually 7 and 8. We got the Salka 6 right now, and we got 2 more coming now. I think we got a boy and a girl coming. So we'll be up to 8, which is great.
I think Dawn's onto something. She's helping all of your friends be able to keep track when she posts pictures of Salka number 6 or Salka number 5.
She got it all down. Yep. And I don't even know who's number what, except Layla's number 1. I know that. But
oh, good God.
Still didn't catch up to Mickey Conboy. Mickey Conboy's at 10. 10 and holding.
Oh.
10 and holding. So we're going to be at 8 in February. I'm not sure if we'll make 9 or 10. I know a couple of the kids have been talking about maybe one more or something, but we'll see. Listen, I'm happy to have whatever I have. Some people have 1 or 2, and they're very happy with that. And that's all you need. That's all you need to know. Just
and right now I have one, buddy. I told you, both of us. So you have 5 kids. I have the 2, and I never thought I could love anything more than my own children. And then Brinley Marie came along, my little granddaughter who's just getting into kindergarten. I love her so much. She makes my heart hurt. I'm Pooba. Pooba. She used to, when she was little, she would call me Poo Poo. I said, we got to change that. She can't walk around daycare saying she loves her Poo Poo. People are going to talk about her. But she never seen the Flintstones, but she loves me Pooba. But oh my God, she holds my heart. And I told you, I was always kind of not jealous, but I'm like, God, John's with his grandkids. He's with Mateo, which my granddaughter calls Mateo. And, and Layla and all your grandkids. And now I'm experiencing that, 5 years now, and it's going by too quick. And, oh my God, I love it. So
Mateo just turned 3. He's talking to me like I'm sitting in a firehouse with somebody. You know what I'm saying?
He's a little man. He's a little man. Helping you and doing projects.
He looked at me the other day. He said, "Where's your hearing?" I had forgotten to put my hearing aids on, and I didn't have them on. And he noticed I didn't have my hearing aids on. He's 3 years old and said something.
Jamie picked me up at the airport yesterday, and Brinley's in the back, and they were talking about what they had for dinner the other night at a restaurant. And she goes, when we were at Pepper's, and Jamie goes, Pepper's? She goes, oh, you mean what is it? Oh, good God. The rib, you get the ribs. It'll come to me again in a second. They got a big red pepper restaurant.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And she goes, can we go back to Peppers? And she's like, oh, she goes, but anyway, it'll come back to me. But hey, speaking of the future, speaking of our grandkids and kids and all that, we've talked about this. We just did another great company officer academy. We got one coming up in November in Massachusetts. We're hoping to see you out there. Then we have one in Cincinnati, the Cincinnati, Ohio area in December. Yeah, we have about 10 of them planned for next year already.
We do. We got a whole bunch. Teresa's been working hard, lining them up for us.
She's trying to figure out how to make her, I always call it her real job, how to fit it all in. We've always had wonderful people from Columbia Southern University. We love them so much.
After the other. They've all been fantastic.
They've been great. But one of the things we talked about, John, over in Idaho at our Company Officer Academy, another great group there from all over that area, all different states. But the topic always comes up about hiring. And there's a lot of processes. And I guess when we talked about doing this topic, one of the things I just popped in my head before we went live is about talking about the career side and the volunteer side, but we got to separate it for a second. So let me just start off, John. When it comes to the hiring, what you and I see, and I know I see it in my consulting, is the challenges of hiring today. It's one of those things over decades when you saw what happened in the 60s. And I always joke about, my dad, was a gunnery sergeant in the Marines in Korea and a firefighter and a roofer and a tough guy. And I asked him, what was it like hiring people in the 60s? And I didn't get the 60s out of my mouth. He said, you mean them damn hippies? And he went down this whole tangent for 10 minutes. And he said, you don't know what it was like. You guys live in the world of today. He goes, you talk about your fights in the street and all. He goes, we had riots. We had people spitting on our soldiers. We had drug problems. We had this. We had blah, 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 blah. We had people racist and stuff doing stupid stuff. We're the fire service. We're supposed to treat everybody the same. And we're dealing with those idiots that pick and choose who they're going to take care of. And I went, holy good God, he's right. I mean, he is right. We just kind of live right now and go, oh my God, look at what's going on in the news.
Right.
But then, and then there was, everybody and their mother. Do you remember when you had to get in a car with your buddies and go take a written exam on a Saturday? And you did like 3 of them for 3 different departments, hoping you'll make a list, an eligibility list with no openings, hoping someone retires, wins the lottery or dies. And you never knew. And now, John, and now I don't know what's going on in New York. I've seen it in Florida. In Texas, good God, first of all, there's so many jobs, there's not enough candidates. And the hiring, they're doing hiring bonuses. John, if you get a job in certain agencies, and this is other parts of the country too, Florida, New Mexico, and that. But in Texas, great fire service here. They're offering $5,000, $7,000, $10,000, $15,000 sign-on bonuses. If you're a firefighter paramedic,
it's hard to believe.
Could you imagine, John, you're going to Titusville, Florida, and we're going to give you $10,000 to be a firefighter here. And then, the laterals and guys jump in departments and stuff like that. So, and then nowadays, again, I think society and social media has allowed people to ease into, and I guess to make it easier to make bad decisions in life, which come back to haunt them. I talk about the resume makers. Now, look, there's people that tell stories out there. They make up stories. Joe Johnson, he did this. And then you go, no, that's all BS story. That's bullshit. You don't like the guy or whatever. Right. But then people do stuff and you go, oh my God, really? And our process, aside from maybe the military and the cops, John, if you went to work down your street from some corporation, you go for an interview and they decide whether they're hiring you. Not us. You have to apply within the application date line. You have to fill it out complete. You can't leave any blanks. You can't just fill out what you want to. Then there's a physical ability day, which you have to pass, not just do good, you have to pass. Then there's a written exam where you have to pass that. Then there's a background check. Then there's a first set of interviews in a lot of places. Then there's a second set of interviews. Then there's a mental health, that exam and maybe a polygraph and all this different stuff. And then you end up on a list. You're not even guaranteed a job. And then some guys get in there, John, and they do stupid shit and they blow it. And I'm like, you work so hard to get here and you blow it.
Even one thing you haven't even mentioned yet, which we'll get to, is, and then when we do call you, whether there's 3 openings in a small department and 30 or 40 or 50 people put in for it, or whether it's New York City, where 40,000 people take the test for, a couple of thousand jobs over the course of 3 or 4 years. It doesn't really matter. And then you finally get called. And then what do we have to do? Then we got to train you. And we provide it. We provide the training to everybody. Everybody just shows up with a T-shirt and a number 2 pencil, and 18 weeks later, they're fired. Could you imagine if you wanted to be a lawyer? So what do you want to be when you go up, son? I think I'll be a lawyer. Oh, okay. Well, there's a really good law office right down the block. Knock on the door. How you doing? I'd like to be a lawyer. Oh, sure. What law school would you like to go to? Come on in. Fill out an application. Nobody else does that. You want to be a doctor? You want to be a lawyer? You want to be a teacher? You just about anything. You got to go out and get trained and pay for it yourself and everything. And yet.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. And here, talk briefly. You've brought this up on shows before, and I'm hoping we're keeping you. You're flashing on the screen, so hopefully we'll keep you live. I know there's technology glitches once in a while, but so you talked about this before about the FDNY, the absolute dream job for so many people, and how when you would call for 300 people, right, to go to academy, 300 people said yes.
Years ago, if they needed 300 off that 8,000 man list, if they needed 300. Let's just say the first 300 right off the top of the list, they would call 300. 300 would say yes. 300 would show up, and 300 would graduate. Now the whole world has turned. I don't know how many times the Earth has gone around the sun or all that other stuff that everybody says, but it's a much different world now. A lot of stuff has happened. society changes. COVID had an impact on the world, but COVID didn't have as much of an impact, just as the way that the world and society and everything develops. But my point is, nowadays, FDNY list, they call 400 guys to get 300 to say yes. And then 75 of them fail anyway. They only graduate 225. And those are not real numbers, but it's something equivalent to those numbers. It's just in the old days, obviously I was, 40 something years ago when I got hired in 79, they would go 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 classes and have to call maybe 301 or 302 guys to get 300 because one guy, ended up getting a job somewhere else or inherited a lot of money or moved away or something like that. But now they got to call so many guys just to get people to say yes to take the job. And that's no guarantee they're going to be on a job anyway, because then they got to make it through the academy, and even there, they get all a little cushy and soft and holding hands and kissing and whatever else they do out there to try and convince them not to leave. Oh, son, you want to leave? You want to resign? Yeah, this is just not for me. Well, you know what? This is a great job, and you be in a nice firehouse, you make a lot of friends, and 25 years. They actually just went back to a 20-year pension. They just went back to a 20-year pension. They were up to 23. They went back to 20-year half pay. Anyway, and guys are, instructors trying to talk guys out of leaving. Now, when I was in the academy, if you want to leave, I got to talk to somebody. I don't want to. I'm dropping out. I'm gonna have to resign. Okay, son, right through that door over there. You walk upstairs. I want to resign. Yeah, they're on a table right there. Sign. Yeah, take your stuff and make sure you leave the key for the locker on the and they just kiss them goodbye. Say hit the road. But now they try to talk them into staying, and you don't want to leave, and this is a great job. And like I said, it's a new world. It's a soft world, and as you can see, you can tell how I feel about it. But that's just the way it is. I'm finally getting used to. I'm finally coming to grips with the world is not the world that I grew up in. As
you're finally embracing VEIS.
Yes, that's
instead of VES.
I put DEIS, but you know what? I'm finally figuring out that even though things are different than when I grew up and when I got on a job and when I went to high school and all the things in my history and your history and a lot of our listeners' history, even though things are not the same, you know what? Some of them still do work. It's not like the whole system is backwards now and everybody who gets hired is a piece of junk, and it's not true. But I just did like the way it used to be. But it doesn't change the fact of what we're talking about today. It's really important to hire good people, whatever your process might be.
And you travel all over. We both do. And my question was, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but what do you see right now as some of the biggest hurdles and challenges that the departments you visit with? And we have to separate volunteer and career because there's two different hiring process and needs, but they're both firefighters. Don't get me wrong; they're both wonderful. But what do you see as some of the biggest challenges that some of these fire departments are having with hiring good and I'll say quality applicants, men and women, for the fire service? What do you see as some of the challenges, maybe?
Well, from my perspective, one of the biggest challenges is society. The society norms that we have now that people grow up in, that people, in grade school and high school and I hate to say the word college, but the norms and the comforts. I remember hearing Steve Chikarotis talk at the FDIC when he did one of the big speeches there, and he was talking about comfort. Comfort is the enemy. Comfort is the enemy. If you're sitting around comfortable all day long, you're doing something wrong, and you find yourself sitting on your recliner, just flipping through the TV channels, looking for something to watch. He said, you should be up working on something. You should be building something or making something, and I agree with that. But that's not what society teaches now. Society teaches now comfort and ease. I had my least favorite word in the English language, easy. Well, isn't it easier to do that? Yeah. So, of course, it's easier, makes it better, makes it faster, makes it more efficient. So I think a lot of people in America, firefighters, mostly men that go to the fire service, we way more women now than we ever have, but people in general that go to the fire service are just coming out of our American society. And there's a lot of different groups in America, as you can see by watching TV on the news at night, people throwing fireballs at each other. But when it comes to who shows up to get hired at the fire or the police department or the military or whatever, everybody's just used to being comfortable. Everybody's got the big comfortable chairs at their desk, and they get the nice cars, and our society is really just geared towards making everybody happy and comfortable. And God forbid, I mean, I know my grandparents, when they came over, when they immigrated from Poland and Italy, they were coming here for the comfort of America. America is a great place, and everybody should be comfortable. I'm not knocking being comfortable, but when you're 21 years old and you're breaking into a new job, you should know that things are going to be tough for a while. You're going to be at the bottom of the barrel. You're going to have to earn your way and earn your keep and earn a new reputation. And a lot of people are just not up to that. They're like, wow, I got to do that, and I'm like, so anyway, so that what does that end up doing? It makes us going through 400 people to get 300, and it makes the 300 that go through the academy only graduate 200. That's why, because some people say, no, this isn't for me. I sweat too much today. I can't go through 2 T-shirts a day, and they leave and they go back to their office job with the air conditioning and the heat and the comfortable chair, and that's how they live their life.
And how many times we said this? Not everybody can be a firefighter. Not everybody can, excuse me, hold a deceased baby in their arms, or deal with the blood, or deal with people screaming over their shoulders while you're CPRing one of their family members, or cutting them out of a car. The stressors of the job, things that you see as a firefighter are not normal. So there's a lot of that. People, they see what they see on TV and they go, wow, that looks cool. And then they get there and they go, this ain't for me. And I'm glad they actually make that decision early on, because you don't want to have somebody trying year after year after year to find their way. And
that's what's good about that. That's what's good about, you hire 300 and you only graduate 2.25. What's good about that is those other 75 people or whatever it was, a lot of them used to stay because of the pressure of staying and because it was a good job and had a good pension and their dad wanted them to do it, and all the other societal pressures that used to exist back then that pretty much don't exist now. And a lot of them ended up being just mediocre, half-assed firemen. You know what I'm saying? Because they stayed in a job that they really didn't fit into and they really didn't want. You and I remember traveling around the country. I went to Florida. I got on a job in the state of Florida, 1,000 miles from where I grew up. I stayed there for a couple of years with my buddy and, came back to the FDNY. Look at the Timmy Klutz boys who are both on a job in Baltimore. Baltimore's a long way from New York State, and they hunted around. I know guys on a job in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and all these different places, guys that really want to be a firefighter, a fireman or a firefighter. They find a way to get there. Other people look at it like, well, Dad, I took that sanitation test. I applied for the job at the insurance company, and I think I'm going to take that fireman test too. That looks pretty good. Sometimes it's just another choice in the employment list for people. And you know what? If they don't make it through the academy, sometimes that's not the worst thing in the world. Sometimes they end up right where they should be, which is at the insurance company, and we don't end up with this mediocre firefighter for 20 years.
Right. Well, and again, part of it, like I said, a big part of it is society and what we're doing. I think we've come a long way. We're not completely there. We've come a long way with our processes, John, where I think the bullying that used to go on, there used to be some pretty nasty stuff that went on. I experienced other people that I witnessed it, that I was actually embarrassed that I was even part of a department that was doing that when I was a young firefighter. Now we're a lot better. We're a lot more fair and objective. Now, I didn't say reduce standards. Our good friends at Women in Fire, our good friends. I remember Angie Hughes, our good friend, the year she was president, where she says, we get angry as female firefighters when you reduce standards. She goes, nobody did it for me. And I'm in my, third decade and I'm a captain. And, you and I we're both big advocates, huge advocates of females as firefighters. You and I have both had female instructors. We have some of our best friends are female chiefs of firefighters. I know I've always said it, you too. I don't care. I don't want to steal your thunder, but you said it. I say it differently. We go, I don't care who you are, where you come from, who you're married to, or whatever.
Who you sleep with or anything else. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
If you love this job, if you're willing to take care of the people out there, you can work for me. And I've said it before. I don't care who you are. If you're passionate about the fire service, if you're passionate about serving the public, if you want to be you want to be part of a greater cause, I don't care where you come from.
And I got to tell you, over the years in the FDNY, not many, but I worked with a couple of guys. I worked with a couple of firefighters when I was an officer that were not exactly my kind of guys. You know what I'm saying? Like if I was their age and I was a fireman, I probably wouldn't be hanging with them. You know what I'm saying? But I loved working with them. And they were my subordinate. They were my firefighters. I was their boss. And when I walked in and they were working, I was like, all right, that guy's working today. And I knew he was going to work hard and do a great job and maybe even surpass everybody else, maybe even be the sharpest guy in the crew that day, Yet, he wasn't the kind of guy that I would befriend if I had been a fellow firefighter with him. It just wasn't the kind of socially the same kind of guy as I was. It doesn't matter what the issues were. But the point is, if you're a good, dedicated firefighter and you're skilled and you love to come to work and you work hard when you're at work, you can work for me. And I am nobody. I'm nobody special. If every boss in the fire service was like me, we'd be doing great. And I think a lot of bosses are just like me. I think a lot of fire service bosses, lieutenants and captains, company officers, and chiefs as well, are just like me. I just grew up in the fire service. I was a volley, and I did become a career firefighter for a couple of short years before I got on the FDNY. But I was just an ordinary American kid that grew up on Long Island, and I joined the fire service. And most of my attitudes and priorities and things of that nature related to the job are things that I picked up and learned and developed in the fire service. I didn't bring them in with me. I learned them in the fire service. Most of the people in the fire service, most of the things we do, the priorities and the values we have are all very good and solid. If you get in the fire service and you grow up in the fire service, whether you stay as a senior firefighter or become an officer, that's a lot of people are very similar. A lot of people have the similar priorities and values, and I think it's a great thing.
Well, exactly. And so that being said, we know, and we don't have enough time. We don't have enough time in 8 hours to talk about the every single detail in people's hiring process. I'll say this, and you've heard me say it before, because we're talking about who are you hiring. I wrote this down. Who are you hiring and how are you doing it? The good, the bad, the ugly. One of the things I was very proud of in Louisville, Texas, John, is their hiring process. And Terry McGrath, Tim, myself, Daryl Brown, we worked very hard to provide a fair and objective hiring process. And, one of the things I tried to fight off there is we were hiring certified firefighter paramedics. And I'm like, we're wasting good applicants because we're giving them a written exam. And then, depending on how they score, and I'm like, so this is a nationally registered or a paramedic. I think they've already proven their cognitive ability. So rather than lose out on candidates that maybe
give the guy a spelling test, right? Give this guy a grammar test. He's already a paramedic. He can't be
exactly
right.
Exactly. So the process changed, and I don't know if it's still that way, but it went really well. I used it at Trophy Club when I was interim there. Is you apply, and now you have to fill out. You can't leave anything blank because we're about reports in detail, right? You can't leave one line. If you have to put NA or whatever, you fill out your application, the whole thing, not just what you think is important. And then, like I said, you come in and you show up on your assessment day on time. You get signed in. You have to provide them with all your documentation. The only thing they allow you to slide on is maybe college transcripts, because sometimes it takes a while to get there, but all your certification, stuff like that. When you're checked off and they go through your application pack, okay, you're good to go. You do one of three things. You either go out and you do your physical ability test, unless you have that 6-month card you got from one of the colleges that says you went through the CPAT exam. You already did it. You go out and do your physical, or you sit in the classroom with 2 firefighter proctors and someone from HR, and you're given a writing assignment for an hour. That's a one single page, follow directions writing assignment that you're graded on. And then the other thing, there's the third, you may be sent, where you do a rapid panel assessment. It's a very quick 3-question interview, and they fire them off, and you only have a little bit to answer them. And they grade you on your command presence, your definition of what it truly means to be a firefighter, and so on and so forth. That gets you through the first stage. And then there's, the continuation. Now there's the formal background process. There's a chief's interview after that with chiefs and guys from the union. And then there's more and more to the process. And then once you get all that passed, you're on the list, and then they start knocking them off.
Right.
Right. I've said it before, in the absence of a good background and hiring process, you will hire problems. People do not become problems after you hire them. Now, I'm not talking dependency problems, things like that.
Right.
People, you missed it. They slid through your they snuck it by you. And if you don't ask the right questions and you have to make sure everything's, legit through your legal, HR, and the Department of Labor, so you're not asking the wrong questions nowadays. That's always been it. You got to stay away from the biggies. You can't ask somebody about their age and stupid, things like that make no sense anyway to people. But that being said, you validate and do good questions. recording everything and so on and so forth. But I've seen some places where I'm like, so how did this person get hired?
Right.
And they go, well, they went through a process.
Right.
You walk me through your process. I'm going, well, you missed this one. And now you're in the newspapers because this guy did something illegal. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I tell you, no. And there's another thing. And this is something you and I just talked about recently. I know somebody who works in a small fire department, and they hired. They did a lateral. They do some lateral hiring. Sometimes it's off a list for brand new people. Sometimes they put out, open it up for lateral people. Some states, New York State is mostly civil service, but some states you can jump around. Some states you can get hired in fire department at number one, and then 3 years later you can go 40 miles away and get hired in fire department number two, and jump right in there. Your seniority counts, and your pension continues with them and all that. So places like that, sometimes they do. I don't know if they do it in Texas, but this place I'm talking about, they do it. So you get some lateral hiring, and this small department hired a guy from not nearby at all, but from far away, but from a big fire department, from a big urban fire department. He had 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. And they hired him. And he was, by all reports, wonderful. Loved the job, into it, had a lot of good skills. Obviously, he was in a pretty big fire department for a couple of years, and it worked out great. And he was, the bosses liked him and stuff. And all of a sudden, something happened. Somebody got a phone call. Turns out this guy, and I don't know all the exact details of it, but I'm not sharing the name of the department or his name, but turns out this guy was either involved in or allegedly did or confirmed that he did. But supposedly this guy was doing some stealing. I don't know if he was stealing from the firehouse or from guys or from whatever, and apparently he left that fire department under that cloud of, that he's doing something. And
he just resigned.
Right. I mean, he must have just resigned. I don't know anything for sure, but I believe he just resigned. And some fire departments allow that. They allow that because what are they doing? They're getting rid of their problem. They don't have to go through a whole big process. They don't have to do any charges or hook the guy up or have him come in or trials or anything like that. And they let the guy go. So he was punished. He lost a very good job because he was doing it. And they considered that his punishment, and they let him resign and leave, and that's fine. Except that some other fire department 1,000 miles away, 6 months later or a year later, he puts in an application for a lateral. Yeah, I retired from here, had 7 years on a job, and my wife moved down here, so I moved down with her, and they brought him in, and now because you know better than I do because you were the chief of department and the interim in a couple of other places. There's a lot of tight restrictions on the things like you said that people can ask and stuff, and which is some of them are absolutely ridiculous because they hide the stuff that you really want to know before you hire somebody. But anyway, he didn't sneak onto the job, but he got onto the job because he had experience and apparently presented himself very nicely, and he was even fitting in very nicely in the fire department until the guys back at his old place somehow heard from Facebook or whatever it was. Holy cow, that guy's on a job down in wherever. And guess what they did? They called up. A couple of them called up. That guy's stealing. He's a thief. He steals from the firehouse. And before you know it, the fire department had to investigate that, and they let him go. And they let him go. And my whole point of this sort of long story is when you cut people loose or let them resign and you don't fire them, especially for serious stuff like stealing or moral, if you just let people walk away, then you have set the table. You have set the table for them sneaking into another place without anybody knowing that they are thieves or that they're morally defective people like that can abuse people at the new job. And it's just not right. Now I know there are extenuating circumstances sometimes where to let a guy go and let him resign and move on. And I'm not here to discuss or debate those. But I'm here to say chiefs and fire departments and commissioners and superintendents and whoever the people are that make that decision, they should really think about it. And I hate to say don't be guided by the lawyers because sometimes lawyers are morally the worst people in town. But sometimes lawyers try and let somebody leave just because it's the easy way to go and they don't have to do a trial and do all this nonsense. But think about that before you just cut people loose or let people resign with a clean record. Especially if they did something that's above and beyond wherever you want to draw that line. You got to draw a line somewhere and say, but you know what? But for stuff that's related to this or this or this, these kind of activities or behaviors, we have to fire them and record it. And that way it prevents them from entering another trusted position as a firefighter or a police officer somewhere and being in a position where they can take advantage again.
Well, it's kind of like, and on a much more serious side, when you see a judge release somebody that's charged with a very serious crime with no punishment, you're gone, you're out, and they go and do it somewhere else. And people go, wait a minute, that person was released by, you see it every day now. A judge released that person, and then they went off and they did this or whatever. And, me, there's been times I've had people that, look, nobody goes to work, oh God, I hope I get to fire someone today. Because number one, first of all, people fire and suspend themselves. But you were in the business of managing the consequence of other people's actions. But there are some people, when there's some things with you and I, you don't cross the line. And when you do, you're gone. The reality is when people go, okay, I resign, and they're gone, unless it's something really big and, it's hard. And this goes back to you doing a good background process, sending your people out, to shake the doorknobs and stuff and ask, review personnel folders. You can do that. It's all open records. But you can go sit down. But I'm just saying, don't get caught up in social media nonsense and people making up stories and lies about people. Do a legitimate background check. I know some places, John, there's a couple states that you can't do a background check until you offer someone they accept a job.
Talk about ridiculousness. Talk about backwards ass rules. You have to make those rules actually work against the fire department hiring good people. They're making it more difficult for you.
Well, I was at one place and it became for them now a debate over how serious the felony was that the person had been convicted of. And I'm like, this is the fire service. We have keys to all the businesses. We're in people's bedrooms, little girls and boys, and in their homes. But so I guess what I'm saying to our viewers is, it's time that you should take a good hard look at your process. Number one, make sure it's all legit, it's fair and objective, it's legal. You don't have any, we can't test people to a skilled level. So the days of putting somebody in a darked out face piece and making them crawl around and see if they're, that's a learned skill. You can't, that's our job to train them. What you do is you give them a written exam to test their cognitive skills, and then the physical ability should be. That's why CPAP is so nice. You can put the pack on, the weighted pack, the helmet, the gloves, and you did things that simulated what a firefighter did, from dragging this and doing that, which anybody can. Then plus having your practice sessions where you can come in for 3 Saturdays in a row.
And those are basic. And those are basic tactics that, they don't have to understand that. It's just an ability. The fact that they can get their hands above their head. You bring a guy in that's, and I'm not picking on weight or anything else, but you bring a guy who's who's 450 pounds. He's not going to be able to do most of the things that a firefighter has to do, from crawling to dragging to climbing ladders and stuff like that. Like you said, a lot of things we teach at the academy, like blacked out face pieces and actually searching or actually tying knots and stuff. You can't be expected to have those skills already,
And I've said that to some departments. Someone may argue with me, but when you make somebody climb 75 feet up an aerial ladder, you and I have had people that have come to work for us that were afraid of heights, that through our mentorship, our training, they got rid of that. They overcame that process, right. Or they're not claustrophobic or whatever. That it's not normal to crawl around on your hands and knees and not be able to see stuff.
Right, a guy that wouldn't climb the ladder the first week at the academy, 5 years later, he's one of the instructors at the academy for ladder work.
Yeah. So if you're providing a process that's fair and objective, and that looks at producing a product, a good candidate, and building the fire service profession, hiring good people and numbers and stuff, instead of just filling turnout gear, because you'll pay the price in lawsuits and everything else later on. So I guess, folks, what you got to do is sit down and look. We'll do volunteers another day, folks. If you're looking for that John L. talk, we've done it before about the different process about volunteers, but sit down and go through your hiring process with your HR people. If you're on the hiring committee, whatever. And the other thing, pick up the phone, call departments that are successful. Go, how are you achieving that? Well, some places have a mentoring. They have an intern program. You can go and intern and get into the process and all self-involvement. And then before you know it, you're in the process and you do well. Or hey, we have practice sessions for the physical, or we have study materials, or here's YouTube videos on what you do, and go and copy. They'll borrow. So John Salka, how is South Blooming Grove hiring career? I know they're volunteer. I'm just picking that name. How are they? You guys always have. Well, this is what we do, man. We do this, and it takes extra work, but we have a committee that goes out. We go out and we go to the churches. We go to the schools. We go all these different places, and we hire. We find the good candidates, and we go, come here, apply. We go into the neighborhoods and stuff, and then we have a process where we can bring them in and mentor them on. And some of them, this is what's going to happen on a written exam, and here's the physical ability, and make sure they understand what it means to be a firefighter. And I think your results are better. Go ahead, bud.
And another thing is, and we didn't really touch on it too much yet because there's so much to hit, but the volunteer fire service, and both of us have been involved in the volunteers for most of our adult lives. And how do you recruit and retain? And that's a big thing in New York State where I live. Recruitment and retention is a big deal because it's not floundering, but it's not doing well. Let's say modern recruitment and retention compared to 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, it's not terrible, but it's really not as productive as it used to be. As a matter of fact, I remember the first time when I joined the Volleys in Mineola out in Long Island where I grew up. I didn't join when I was first eligible because there was no openings. There was 3 companies in Mineola at the time: Engine 1, Truck 2, Engine 3. And each of them had I believe it was a 50-person limit on membership. And all 3 of them were full. And if they were full, you could put an application in, but they couldn't take you. They couldn't vote on you. They couldn't accept you in. You couldn't be a probationer until there was an opening. So I remember having to wait. And, of course, I was hanging around there every Monday night. And I knew 1 or 2 guys, Billy Bowen, God rest his soul. He was the guy that sort of sponsored me. He was my neighbor. He was a Nassau County cop. Died very young of a heart attack. But I remember waiting. And finally here and there, a couple of guys left, a couple of guys retired, whatever it was. And I finally got in. And the process now, and I'm not knocking the process there because I thought it was good, but I specifically remember there was a wooden box with black and white marbles in it. And the night, they would introduce you. They would say your name, where you were from, John Salka. They just graduated high school here in Mineola. He lives on Alberton Place. Billy Bowen's his sponsor. Billy Bowen was a great guy, very well respected. I'm sure that helped me get in. And everybody would get a white ball and a black ball in their hand. And they would pass that box around. And you just were able to put 1 ball in that little box. There was a little hole at the top in the top. And when they got all done and go up to the front, the captain would open it up, or maybe the president, and look at it. If there was just 1 black ball, if there was 35 guys there and there were 34 white balls and 1 black ball, they kiss you goodbye. Yeah. Sorry, we can't take you. They didn't tell you there was just 1, but all it took was just 1. Of course, that's history now. But the same thing happened. You had to go, you had to apply. You had to, in a volunteer fire department I'm a member of now, and I know some other places do it too. Sometimes they go visit. I know some fire departments on Long Island where if you were under a certain age, if you were just 18 or 19 years old or 20, you weren't 21 yet, they would go and make an appointment to go visit your mom and dad at home. Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Perkins. Yes, your son Billy came down. He applied to the fire department. Yes, we know. We dropped him off that year. He's been so interested for years. And you visit the mom and dad. You see what the home is like. You see. Now, I don't know if that's all illegal now because it's so morally solid and good for America, but it seems like everything that's good gets thrown out, lately. But what a great way to make sure you're recruiting in good, morally stable people from nice homes with good families. Not that a kid that comes from a bad home is a bad kid,
right?
But at least you can discover that. You can discover that and see what's going on.
Yeah, oh, exactly. And this goes back, like I said, what are you investing in your process to make sure it's legit and it's good? Louisville Forever, they'd actually travel. They'd go out, they go meet at your former employee. They sit down in their conference room and go through your performance evaluations and your stuff. And they would actually check on your references. Because are you going to put a reference down that's going to be honest about you if you're not the best employee? You're going to put all your buddies down or people that are going to, but again, Terry was always really good about Terry McGrath. He could figure through all. Part of that was just when he was a cop in Dallas, so he had that attitude.
That's that cop attitude. They'll uncover it.
He was able to get to the bottom of it. But so, folks, I mean, like John said, it's about really making sure that you're doing your due diligence in your background, checking out references, checking things. We have an obligation to the public to provide the best firefighters out there possible. You and I see it all the time where chiefs and administrative people, all these different people are being let go or fired or allowed to resign, depending on where you're at. And some of them should have never been hired in the first place.
Right.
Or they were allowed to, later on to do stuff in the absence of good solid leadership. So you got to make sure, folks, the departments that are successful are the ones that start at the very beginning and recruit the best people possible. Everybody has a fair, equal, and objective opportunity. And if you want to be successful, you can work for us and we'll provide you with all the tools you need to be successful, but it's on you. Here's everything you need to be a successful firefighter with the Beeperville Fire Department. You come to work here, we're going to provide you with a path for success. And if your process is doing that, if your physical ability is fair and objective.
And not only is the process of hiring people, but then once you hire people, like that place where you can't even, ask them certain things until you offer them a job, as backwards as some rules are, even if you have to follow them as you do, and you hire some people, if you discover a year later, hey, chief, captain's telling you, this guy, I don't know why you hired him, but this guy is this, and this. If a guy is breaking the rules and not performing, that should be built into your system too. Then there's a disciplinary process. Then there's a correcting behavior process should be in place in your department. And if you really did either accidentally or unknowingly hire somebody that doesn't measure up and really doesn't belong there, if any of their behaviors are either serious enough or long enough or sustained, then there's a process that you can get rid of people if you have to. You can cite them and discipline them and warn them and go through that whole situation. And if they really don't measure up, there's a way to weed out people that aren't measuring up, that aren't a plus for your agency.
Oh, exactly. So, and one of the other things I'm going to say before we end the show is, if you're a chief, involve your people and create a hiring committee, a recruitment retention committee, and have them be active, not only out in the community and going to the colleges and the schools and the high schools and recruiting and the churches and the neighborhoods and stuff like that. But a lot of young firefighters, they just went through the process or processes trying to get hired. They have buddies, they have guys and gals that are all trying to get hired. They see what works, what doesn't work. They're going to be the first ones to say, that is not a fair process, man. I'm telling you, that is the worst hiring process I've ever been through. This one was good. You felt like you had a chance. The people that were there for the fire department, they were like in your face, like, come on, man, you could do this. Come on, we need you. They were encouraging. It wasn't like, sit down, shut up, don't do it, like that kind of stuff. They didn't rub our shoulders, but man, they were just, you looked at it going, I made the right decision applying here. Because if that's the people I get to work for, but so a lot of things, folks, we're talking about your hiring and how you do it. And like I said, we can spend 8 hours on it. I guess, like I said before, I'll say it again, go through your processes, make sure they're legit, make sure they're honest, make sure they're objective, make sure they're fair, the Department of Labor is really good, and just, peer review, make sure you're doing what's right. The competition is fierce in the fire service right now. It's a great job. So make sure you're going out and doing your thing. And hire the best people you can. In the absence, I'll say it again and again, in the absence of a good background and hiring process, you will hire problems. So try to avoid that in the first place. John, any closing thoughts?
No, other than we really just skimmed the surface. Maybe we'll have another session coming up. Maybe not immediately, but down the road, and talk a little bit more about this. Maybe we can put some more time into the volunteer systems and stuff like that. Other than that, I know we're talking to a small group of people here. We're talking to the chiefs and maybe the HR people or maybe the personnel people of your fire department. But the one thing I do in my volunteer fire department all the time is I tell guys is, you guys go out and find somebody. Grab one of your neighbors. Grab somebody you know at the job and say, hey, you know what? You'd probably enjoy the firehouse that I belong to. Why don't you come down?
Find me one like you.
Right. Bring just one more guy like you. And if 3 guys a year did that, we'd be overfilled with people. Even if just 3 guys a year brought a new guy in, we have hired, we've accepted, we voted in a couple of new members, adult men. We got a lot of young kids too, and we didn't even talk about that today. We got a lot of young kids that all joined about 10 years ago, and boy, they're the salvation of my volunteer fire department. Half of them are officers now. They're the guys that they're the frequent responders and stuff like that. But yeah, if each guy, we have 2 or 3 new guys that came in that are dads and husbands and business owners and stuff. And I wish we would have had them 10 years ago. And they said the same thing. Oh God, I can't believe I just joined. I wish I've been here for 10 years already, you know? So the process, there is hope. There is hope for the fire service, and hiring good people or attracting new volunteers in, you know?
Absolutely. So yeah, there's the message again. Reach out to those that are doing a good job and steal from them. grab their processes, their information, and make it work for you. Hey, if they want to get a hold of you, buddy, best email.
Chief John Salka at gmail.com.
And I'm Chief Lasky at gmail.com. I post all the classes that John and I teach together on my website at chieflasky.com. So if you're looking for the company officer academies that we do by ourselves or with our wonderful partner, Columbia Southern University, you can go there. You'll see them posted. Like I said, we have one coming up in Massachusetts in November. We have one in Ohio in December, and we're already scheduling them. And there's a whole bunch of people sending their MOU back to Teresa. And,
right, there's a couple of people waiting to pick the dates. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're pretty much on all the social media stuff. Come up and see us again at FDIC. And as we finish things out here, and John knows where I'm going with this, we always end our shows with one very big and important message, and that is, please keep the men and women in our armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. And remember, never forgetting. Never forgetting means never forgetting. Be safe. God bless you. We'll see you next time. See you later, buddy.
Bye.
Prepare, respond, survive. When seconds count, train with the best. Fire facilities, custom steel towers built for real-world fire training. Be ready, be resilient.
I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of exposure 4. Fire through the roof of the 5 million in the entire rear section. Now remember, given the payday, has been accounted for. Okay. 610B. That was the day date. 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire showing from the 2nd floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Bring up to the top floor. I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building. A lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a 3rd alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows centered below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. 2nd alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got 1 line stretch, fire on the 4th floor. 2nd line being stretched. Primary stretches are underway.